Hello and welcome to a special edition of Willow Talk. It's an English Willow Talk, and we've had a few so far, namely with Graeme Thorpe and Steve Harmison. So after those two, our next guest has a bit to live up to, but I'm sure he will, because he's got a book out at the moment and it's well worth a read. It's called The King of Spain and I. It's out now and available as a hardback or an ebook from fairfieldbooks.co.uk and all good booksellers wherever you are around the world. Ashley Giles joins me on Willow Talk. Ashley, great to have your company, mate. And do you reckon you can live up to Swanee and Harmy and the stories that they tell?
Hi, Adam. No, good to be here. Not quite sure I've got the stories that Swanee's got. And Harmy's been great on the radio, actually. But no, really appreciate you having me on.
Too easy. Mate, The King of Spain, firstly, it's the name of the book. And it's a damn good story, and it's one that's stuck. And I'm guessing if you're ever going to do a book, you've gone, okay, well, I know I've got the hard work of actually writing the thing ahead, but I know what the title's going to be, because it's a funny story, and it tells a bit about your character. Is that you don't have to take yourself too seriously all the time, do you?
No, and it's actually, for those who don't know, the connection is back in 2001 when I just got into the England team, had a little bit of success. The shop at Edgbaston, I played all my cricket at Warwickshire. They sent away for some mugs that should have declared me the King of Spin, and 2 samples came back. Only 2 samples. And actually, rather than the King of Spin, they came back the King of Spain, and it was quite low key at that point. And then when I had more success, particularly through 2004 and then heading into 2005, it just grew legs. And it was on the TV, it was in the papers. There were suddenly Spanish flags in the ground, the songs that go with it. And now actually, it's still the one thing, having now been in, whether it be coaching, leadership, administration for 18 years, it's still the one thing when I walk down the road. If I know someone's clocked me, they go about 5 yards past and then shout the King of Spain. So it's a great story. For me, again, I say it connects me to that really special time that was 2005 and 2004-05, really, for me. So I have no problems with it, and I absolutely love it.
Brilliant. And it still sticks. Like, absolutely still sticks, which is the remarkable thing about it. And cricket has that habit, doesn't it? It's, once you get tagged with a nickname or a moniker or whatever like that, it is almost impossible to shake.
Yeah, and I suppose it's also a sign of how important that playing bit is to people, that, you can do whatever you want in the other side. And I've had a reasonable amount of success in the other side, but it's the playing, and particularly I think that series, which I know we're going to come on to, the 2005, that when you talk about in a room, you can still hear a pin drop. But in terms of the title, you're right. From when I first started writing chapters, and that was way back in 2007, and I've been back and edited them a number of times. It's always been the King of Spain and I. And actually, I think it's so fitting now, because I hope it tells a story of, this character that was the King of Spain that everyone sort of imagined playing cricket out in the middle and always enjoying it and having the time of his life. And then there's the I bit, the me, who sometimes actually probably struggled with the game and struggled with the pressures of it and didn't enjoy it. I know that can be difficult for people to believe, but those 2 characters and the book talks about both of them equally, I think.
And there's no dancing around any topic as well. We'll dive into that a bit later on about what cricket did to your insides and your mind over a couple of years and coming through out the other side of it. But firstly, before we get you rolling, a bit of a topical one. The India-England series, a lot of people saying nearest thing to 2005 Ashes. I'd say for you personally that there's one trumps the other, but it was a brilliant watch, and it had us here in Australia up and, pushing the boundaries of when bedtime was. But over there, what kind of imagination did it capture, and what did you think of it?
Well, it's been a proper test series, a proper 5-match test series with 2 giants, Goliaths, just sort of bashing hell out of each other, I think, for the whole period. It must have been exhausting for the guys who played in it. obviously the importance of the sort of prelude, the build up to the Ashes this winter as well is hugely important for the England team. They've still not won, I don't think. We've still not won a 5-match series, I think, since 2018. So that pressure remains. But I think, there's a couple of things about this series. I still think at times the England team need to, when they've got the foot on the throat, put the foot down and take the advantage home, as I think they didn't do against the Australians just 2 years ago. And when you let good sides off the hook, they make you pay. But on the other side, actually, I think it's the first time we've seen them adapt at times and play a longer game when they had to. And some, these test matches, many of them went the distance. Great games of cricket. And they have, again, captured the imagination, particularly for the longer form of the game. Probably not just in this country, but worldwide. And as we all know, wherever India are involved, it has a huge following. And I think I saw something this morning that there were over 1 billion hits on social media for the ECB through this series, which is just huge.
Yeah, and that's spoken like a true CEO, which you're currently of Worcestershire Cricket Club, which means that's all right. You take into account things that you never thought you'd take into account, of course. But what's it like? Like after cricket, you got into coaching, a director of cricket role, now down the business side of a county. I mean, how have you landed with this? It's always touching cricket in some way, shape, or form, but is it impossible to kind of rid yourself of the love of the game?
Yeah, I feel very privileged to still be involved in the game after all this time. So we're looking at about 32 years now from player and coach administrator. Very lucky. I've always been and continue to be ambitious. I don't think in a dangerous way or a threatening way to anyone else, but I'm ambitious to keep striving to be better and do more. The CEO role, I guess, was sort of the final hurdle, because you have that full umbrella view over everything. And I've probably actually learned more in the last 2 years of this role than I have in any role, because the cricket, I still carry some director of cricket responsibilities at the club. But naturally, be careful how I say this, find that easier because that's my experience. But when you go into a CEO role, you work out very quickly that cash is king. Cash flow is everything. If you haven't got cash, the business don't survive. And but the commercial aspects, the finance aspects, marketing, operations, just the ground functioning, completely different perspective. And I love it. It's a great club. And for me, Adam, I'm 6 miles away from the ground, so it's given me a different sort of quality of life as well.
Yeah, well, it's better than just racking up frequent flyer points for fun, like you were as a player, and also the director of England role and the coaching role as well. Let's delve into some things I've picked out from the book as well. I want to go back to when you met your wife, who's from Norway originally. Tell us a story about the fact that she didn't believe you initially when you went out the door at like 8 a.m., got home at 8 p.m. and you said, no, really, because this sounds like the story that you have to spin to your wife. Well, I do anyway, that my rounds of golf take 7 hours actually, not 4. But she didn't believe you that the whole day could be devoted to just the one sport.
That's right, yeah. When I met Stina, well, firstly, she thought when I said I was a cricketer that was just a hobby and I was probably unemployed. And so probably a bit of a waster. And then, a couple of days later, so I'm going to cricket. I'll see you later. And she, I think she prepared herself for lunchtime and we better spend some time together. And she tells me she got angrier and angrier. And I could see it when the door opened. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? But she just didn't know. And there was another match, one of the first matches she came to. I said, how'd you enjoy it? She said, well, I couldn't tell who was on what side. And it's one of those things as a cricketer, you don't think about everyone in whites. She just didn't know what was going on, but she certainly does now. There's actually times when, I've come home and just wanted to turn cricket off because that's all my day consists of, and she's watching it and wants to watch it. So yeah, she certainly has an opinion now on what goes on with the game.
Yeah, but I find people who don't understand cricket fascinating because that's what cricket can learn from in terms of the why do you do that way mentality. And I'm guessing in the early days of that relationship, she would have had a few curious questions that made you think a bit because you went, yeah, it's a very good point. Why does England wear the light blue, and why would you go anywhere with light blue trousers on, much less in front of 30,000 people playing a game?
Yeah, good point. And I was very lucky also. My mum and dad used to watch along with my county cricket as well. So early on, I think as you're talking about at cricket, they used to sit with her and really just talk her through every situation, every moment, what a wide was, what a no ball is, LBW. Oh my God, how do you explain that to a Norwegian? That's pretty hard. But then I suppose that's why some of these modern tournaments, even the 100's not popular with everyone, but trying to simplify the game for a broader audience. So runs go up and runs come down when you require them. And we've got to, I'm going to sound like a CEO again now, but we've got to try and make the game as accessible to as many people as we can.
You made your debut, or you walked into an English dressing room in the late 90s. I was interested about how you perceived it, or how you recalled it. You almost called it it read like it was a selfish environment, like there was not a lot of feeling of camaraderie, which is totally different now to every other team now. You hear the word connection. That's the biggest word in sport, it feels like at the moment. Everyone needs to be on the same page, get to know each other. But back then, totally different vibe.
Well, I think it was more fear rather than selfishness. There may be elements of that, but because of, fear can create that. But there were no central contracts. People were playing for the next match. It's not that they didn't get on. Many of them had played a hell of a lot of cricket together. But yeah, I think I liken it to it's almost like they're only in their own bags. So I'm only interested in what's going on here and how do I get to the next match. And so for the players, and I think also for David Lloyd, who was the coach then, who's Bumble's an incredible character. That's a really tough environment to work with. I didn't play Test cricket again for then 2 years, and it was a completely different environment. I went back into central contracts, which was coming in. There was much more stability. The coach could look after his bowlers a lot more. And at times you got criticised for that, and guys probably still do, but England first had to be the most important thing, because ultimately, as we know, that's where all the good stuff comes from. That's where the profile comes from. Ultimately, that's where the revenues come from. So it was crucial.
Tell us about David Lloyd Bumble, the coach, because I look at that and you're now modern day, like one of the great storytellers of all time, very funny human being. Kerry O'Keefe, he's like England's version of Kerry O'Keefe. You're just waiting for the punchline the whole time. But him in the role is like this kind of I'm going to help you, and I'm just going to be the authoritative figure as well. Doesn't exactly link up in my mind, but you lived it. What was he like?
Yeah, I only worked a little bit with Bumble, but he was more. His mode was more the inspirer. I remember getting on coaches when we were in a one-day series in Australia, actually, and on would come Land of Hope and Glory, or Rule Britannia across
on the bus.
On the bus, yeah. It's just to fire everyone up, and I thought, well, this is interesting. It's not normal listening, but that was the passion Bumble has and remains, I think, for the country and for winning and for beating Australia particularly. But at that point, probably we needed a bit more help with how we played Shane Warne than, Landed Hope and Glory.
Do you know what Shane Warne called you?
Smash Me, was it?
Yeah. It was very unfair. Smash Me Miles was his name for you. I mean, that was the era, wasn't it? Just to get on top of your opponent and give the opponent a derogatory name or something like that. How'd that make you feel the first time you heard it?
Yeah, I don't know how often he said it. I did hear it and have been reminded of it. Yeah, it's not my most popular nickname.
King of Spain's a bit better.
King of Spain's a bit better. But I also remember Warne, actually. We were somewhere, and we talked about that last day of the Ashes, when I batted with Kev for about, whatever it was, 3 hours, 4 hours. And actually Shane Warne said, well, we didn't have to get Kevin Peterson out. We couldn't get Ashley Giles out. And that's one of the biggest compliments I've had, because, I batted 9 that game because Simon Jones didn't play and Paul Collingwood played. And following me was Harmison and Hoggard, and that was it. And that, it would have been game on. So that was, I'd rather remember that about Warne. Warne was a great man. I always say he's, probably the best cricketer I've ever played against. Just the theatre he created, the atmosphere. I mean, to deliver what he delivered over such a long period as a leg spinner is absolutely outstanding. So, he's still a huge miss to the world of cricket.
Yeah, you being a spinner and he being a spinner, and you'd have a really good read of it, because especially that day at the Oval and other occasions, you have to face him, you have to negate him, you have to do something against him and not get out. What was that experience like? Shane Warne in his pomp, trying to repel him.
Yeah, it's like any spin. For me, it's the longer you're in, the more chance you've got, because you start to read variations and flight and drift and pace. But clearly, against the best spinners, you don't get that chance to stay in that long. That's the battle. I actually write about in the book the Oval Test was the first time I was able to use this machine called Merlin. Merlins nowadays are much smaller. They're like little boxes that they're these perfect leg spinning machines. Back then, Merlin was this huge, big box that came on the back of a trailer, very complicated. And for every other test match, by the time it came around to me, he'd broken. We couldn't use it.
Yeah.
And at the Oval was the first time I was able to go in and use it. It was so useful. And Fletch stood behind me, and we were talking about how you defend as much as score, just the positions you get into. And it was brilliant. And I don't think it's a coincidence then that, in that test match, I got 32 in the first innings, which was quite important, and batted some time. But then clearly, and everyone talks about the winning runs at Trent Bridge, but I got 7 not out. But the 59 at the Oval, when I went in, and we were only about 200 ahead with 55 overs left, so tons of time, for Australia to chase down in that situation. That was the most important innings I played in my life, and thank you to Merlin and Fletch for the help they gave me on the lead up.
Screw you, Merlin and Fletch. From my point of view, no, it's a wonderful occasion. Well, congratulations, Ashley. You totally deserved it. But no, we'll get a little bit more down the path with the 05 Ashes in a moment. Just one last one on Warne. I'm fascinated by this. When you hear a cricket ball go through the air, it's got a unique sound. But I'm suggesting a bowler like Warne, I don't know how much you've faced like a Stuart McGill or other, like Murali as well. Did it have this just like it was sounding like this rattlesnake through the air, or I don't know, what did it sound like?
Yeah, there was a bit of that with Warne. I mean, I did play against Warne in the early part of his career. Certainly with Murali. When you went in against Murali in that first 10 balls, it was literally fizzing as it came through the air. It was almost like he attacked you particularly. Like he couldn't spin it that hard all the time. But for that first 10 balls, it was literally like it was electricity coming off the ball, and you just thought it was going to explode, it was going to go everywhere. But I think with Warne, as much as anything, as I said, it was the theatre, because his variations were actually quite little by the end of his career. But he just got in your head. He just, he just turned you inside out. But for me, as the opposition spinner, against any of those guys, it's really challenging, because you definitely take on some of that responsibility of, well, he's their spinner, I'm ours. And of course, there is no comparison, but you still feel that inside quite keenly. But again, I used the word earlier, where I look at my journey, how you start on the village green. There's this kid who's just watched Botham's Ashes in 1981, and want to do that. And then, you're there in 2005 on that stage, and have played against all these greats. It's privilege. It's absolute privilege and a huge pleasure.
What about some of the other greats, and like not just greats of an era, like greats of all time? Names like Tendulkar, Lara, standing at the top of your mark going,
yeah,
I've got a problem to solve here, but not many can do it well, and now it's my issue. You did it from time to time. You got them out. Yeah. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, again, I played against that whole generation, if not two generations of great players, whether it be the Aussies and Ponting, Gilchrist, Hayden, etc. We'd go on forever with the Aussies. And I missed some out. Steve Waugh even played against Mark Waugh. But Aravinda de Silva, Sangakkara, Jayawardene, Lara, Tendulkar, Dravid. I'm missing them. I'm missing some here. Inzi, just incredible players. Lara actually is the one I say I think he's the best batsman I've ever played against.
What was that?
I just think, I saw him first I saw him first close up in 1994 when he came over to Warwickshire and Warwickshire did the treble, and he was then, I think he was in his pomp then. I don't think I've seen anyone, and I played all my international cricket after that point. I don't think I've seen anyone bat in that way before, during or after. He was just insane. I then think to break the world record twice in Test cricket. The second time when he was playing terribly, looked like, he was playing like a blind man. And then I missed that match. I actually had, I was really ill in Antigua and missed the match. Poor old Gareth Batty played, and Lara gets 400. Never looked like getting 400 as a set. It still holds the first class world record. And I think some of the innings even he's played against Australia to win matches almost single-handedly. I don't think we've seen anyone play that way. And the way he does it, it was the most beautiful player to watch. But I actually had quite a lot of success against him. I only bowled him 4 times and I got him out 3 times. And again, one of the best compliments I had from Brian was at Edgbaston in that series in 2004 when it was spinning and it was first innings, it was really spinning and he was scratching around a little bit, which is not often something you hear about Lara. And then he swept one down a deep square and he ran down the wicket, and obviously he knew Brian, but he called everyone by their surnames. So he said, I said, Giles, you got me confused. And that's the biggest compliment I could ever have in my life from such a great player. But enjoyed some great tussles with Tendulkar. See the famous stumping incident, which I still think they're probably burning effigies of me in India for.
This was at a time when they were burning effigies at the drop of a hat, so I wouldn't take it too literally, Ashley. They'd love a burn of an effigy on the subcontinent. It happens. Yeah.
It was, but again, I write in the book. It wasn't a way. It wasn't some great master plan. It wasn't a way of being disrespectful. It was trying to find a way to stop the best batsman in the world scoring. Actually, when we were taking wickets the other end, and the middle part of the pitch was flat as anything. And so why bowl that to the best player? So we wore him down incredibly. The most patient, one of the best players of all time. He just got fed up and ran down the pitch and missed it. And that was the only time he's ever been stumped in Test cricket.
Amazing. Just on Lara, though, like when he says that to you, you still have to go to the top of your mark and try and get him out still. It's not like he said it to you on his way off. That's the big worry. Because I can imagine when he is on, you're thinking, right, the options I have are 1, 2, 3, and if they're not good enough, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah. Well, see, I always think, and I spent a lot of time not doing this, 2004, at that point, I started 2004 in a horrible place. by that time I was in this purple patch and I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just bowling the ball hard. It was, it was just all positive. The Lords pitched the match before, and that pitch they spun. So I didn't worry about it. I often thought if I bowl my best ball, if he runs down and hits my best ball out of the park, well, so be it. And he's more than capable of doing that. Fortunately, I spent a lot of my career at the end of my mark going, please don't bowl a bad ball. And those sort of
really
thoughts that are really very normal, but and the self-doubt and the self-criticism and the again, as I've talked about, the listening to too much around you rather than just concentrating on your job. But that summer was just a golden time for me, and I didn't really think about it.
Yeah, your career, like almost after reading the book, it feels like you were just sometimes on this downhill slope, like a cross-country mountain bike, and there was just bumps all along the way, and you were hanging on for dear life, and you somehow got to the end, and it was great. And we'll get to 05 in a moment. One of the bumps actually was thanks to your great mate Steve Harmison, who just decided to charge in the nets in 2003 and ended an Ashes campaign for you. It sounds like something only Harmy could maybe concoct and just get a little carried away in the moment, and it cost you big time.
Yeah, the end of 2002, that 2-3 Ashes. Yeah, I remember that. We did have this ongoing joke through the tour, that no one wanted Harmy in the nets because he was just bowling the speed of light, and someone was going to get hurt. And that morning, I got down there, and there's the coaches board that we always have with who's batting and where and against who. And I remember Alex Stewart and Nass on my shoulder, and I looked at the board and I said, "Oh Christ, I'll be going home tomorrow. I've got Harmy." Yeah, we all laughed. Yeah. And I went in the spin net first, and actually I was playing the spinners, just watching the seam net because Rob Key was in the net next to me, and he was just getting battered everywhere by Harmy. So I went in, and first ball, it was just quick. I mean, it was quick. And I got to about here, and it hit me right between the arm guard and the glove. So I had everything on, but dropped. When you drop it dropped straight down. There was no deflection, it was straight down. And it sort of, your eyes, like, oh, okay. And Craig White was also bowling in the net, and he was like facing an off spinner. Chalky could bowl really quick. And the worst thing was we had these spectators. It was when the spectators could sit at the back of the nets in Adelaide, and they were right here. And there are spectators, and they're geeing him up even more. So I turn around and go, "Do you mind? We're on the same team here." But I actually batted for 10 minutes against Steve, and came out, and Alex Stewart and Nass are standing there, and their shoulders are going. They're loving it, and I had a little smile and laugh with them, and then I stood there for a couple of minutes, took my glove off, and I couldn't move my arm. So it's amazing what adrenaline does, and that got me through those 10 minutes. I'd basically broken my wrist right through, and couldn't move it at all for the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks while it started to heal. And that was the end of that Ashes campaign. I'd actually started it pretty well. I got wickets in the first test, and I was bowling well. Next thing I knew, I was on the plane home.
Wow. Harmy, one of the nicest guys going around, would have been mortified, surely.
He was. I remember him that night, he was waiting for me in reception, got back from the hospital, and he was as, if not more upset than me. He is the most, one of the kindest, biggest, cuddly giants. One of the best drinkers in the game as well, I would probably say, but
we'll get to
he's
that.
a very, very kind man. Yeah.
Is a tour of Australia that brutal? Obviously, the guys in the team now are going to experience it later in the year, but we think we're a pretty hospitable, friendly place. And it gets hot in summer, big grounds, bit of the courage juice drunk in the crowd, bit of things flowing over the fence in a verbal way towards you guys. But can it grind you down, a tour of Australia?
Yeah, I don't think there's a more intense environment for an English cricketer to be in, and for a long time, I didn't really enjoy Australia. It wasn't until actually I went back when I was one-day coach, and I took what was like our performance squad out, almost like our Lions, our second team, for a few weeks before Christmas, and then the family came out over Christmas, and then we were starting the one-day series. And that's the first time I've really had a chance to breathe in Australia, if you like, and enjoy it. I enjoyed Perth, and as a family, we loved Melbourne. We were in Brisbane first. It was gorgeous. But on those tours, I mean, the last one particularly, which was different again because of COVID, it was a different level of intensity, and you get battered. You know the cricket is going to be really hard on the field, and you know you're going to get it off the field, whether that be the media or the public, and that's okay. That's just that's the nature of the environment. But I think at the same time, you guys appreciate sides that go there and do well. That side that went there and won in was it 10-11? Yeah. I think you showed a huge lot of appreciation for probably Gatt's side. I remember going back with Mike Gatting on an A tour in 1996. And he was still hailed this legend because he was the last England captain at that point that had won the Ashes, and you respect that. So
we also like the fact that he played a reverse sweep in a World Cup final to hand us a victory in 1987. But that might have been half the reason why we didn't mind Mike Gatting.
We won't talk about that. And I think the same applies for that. 2005. I think people still look at that, and it there's a respect for going toe-to-toe with that Australian team.
We'll get into that in more detail after the break. You're with English Willow Talk with Ashley Giles, the 05 Ashes memories, right after this. Ashley Giles talking about his book, The King of Spain and I, and cricket and life in general. So, Ashley, just before the break, you were talking about 04. You were kind of up and down, and this is when these mental battles were starting with you, and we'll get into a bit of a broader talk about it in a moment, but how were you placed heading into the 05 Ashes with a bunch of players that you knew so well, a leader that you've known for a very long time in Michael Vaughan? How are you feeling ahead of what could have been and turned out to be one of the greatest moments in English cricket history?
Yeah, so that journey started 5 years before when Fletch took over as head coach and actually Nasser took over as captain. And those years for me were as important as the years that Varney took it on. Nas came in, he was much more stick than carrot. And you did as you were told. And he'd shout and scream at you at times. But whether you were Graeme Thorpe, Alex Stewart, or a young player like myself, it was all the same. There was no hierarchy, and I liked that. You just knew where you stood. But then when Varney took over the team in 2003, it was time, because we'd done all that stuff, and it was time to almost take the reins off, and the likes of Flintoff, just let them go and express themselves. And Varney was an exceptional leader, and so by the time we got to 05, as a team, I think we were ready. We'd been through 2004, won every Test match at home, won 7 out of 7. Then went to South Africa, and that was a big test for us, and won that series 2-1. And actually, one of the really important moments at the end of 2004 was we played the Aussies in the semi-final of the Champions Trophy. I know it's a completely different format, but we battered them at Edgbaston. We won by 6 wickets, I think. And I think there we thought, okay, we might be ready for this contest. And then leading into the series specifically, I'd just been off for about 4 or 5 weeks it was the beginning of my hip issues that I had. So I missed much of that build up, but I remember getting to Lord's for that first day, and it was or for the first day of preparation. There's just this nervousness, excitement. Everyone's buzzing. Everyone's got opinion on the result. Glenn McGrath particularly, 5-0. Of course, Glenn's normal go-to. But in those situations, you actually just want to get on with it. you just want to get out there and start playing cricket.
You were dealing with all that and building up and getting yourself in the best physical shape as you could do despite the hip, but there was always this kind of, it felt like this air around you that, and you write about it in the book, about an article that was written around this time, I'm pretty sure, like the headline was, "What's the point of Ashley Giles?" Which is as full on as you can get, but when the English press kind of get the hint of something, they don't exactly just put it in small writing, do they? So how did you deal with that, and who helped you there?
Well, look, fortunately, actually, that was... So I'd had a really rough period from sort of middle of 2003 right up to the end of the second test. So we played New Zealand at the beginning of 2004 at home. They were our first, that was the first series. The end of that second test match, I was in a really dark place. So I remember being at Headingley and I played in the match, and we'd already won the series 2-0. So, our liaison guy came down and said, right, sort your stuff out. If you could have some lunch and then we'll do photos upstairs. And I had a shower, packed my bags and just walked out the back, got in my car and went home. And that was just the sort of mindset I was in. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. And going into that third test, I spent 2 days in between, I think that's all it was, in a really bad place. Just didn't want to play with my kids, didn't want to spend any time with my wife, just sat in a chair and watched telly, wouldn't know what was on. So pretty dark. And it was actually a chance meeting with Steve Bull, who was our team psychologist. He'd been in to see Fletch. And I don't know why I did it. And I was the last person in the dressing room, and I just said, Fletch, Bully, can we have a cup of coffee this afternoon? Can we just grab a chat? And he went, yeah. And it was quite emotional. It was quite difficult. I just sort of like everything out. And we started moving forward and talking about a plan, if you like. And part of that plan was stop listening to the noise, all the outside stuff, which is easier said than done. Start concentrating on the good stuff I'd done for the team over time. And I'd had some good performances and my broad role. So I don't think I was just this bowler. I think I had a really good influence in the dressing room. I could get some runs. I caught well at gully, etc., those sort of things. And then how we do it. So we decided I'd write things down. I had a performance diary. I went straight to the shop, bought this diary, started writing things down. And it's weird looking back, because even writing the book, and I have written it myself, is almost quite cathartic. And it takes me back to that time that made a difference. And it did make a difference. Almost overnight, I changed. It just was almost like get it out, get it down, and move on. And even writing the good stuff about me was quite difficult. It was quite painful. You're writing things and you're like, because there's almost like a sense of embarrassment.
Yeah.
So I did all that, and we got into the game, and it was actually about the second day of the game that I was sitting at breakfast in the hotel. Someone pulled the paper up, and there was this headline on the back saying, "What's the point of Ashley Giles?" And I remember actually just laughing to myself. And whoever was holding the paper said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "Well, that." But my mindset had already changed. So I was able to get past that. And, we spend too much time worrying about what other people think and say. We also spend too much time worrying about what might happen, what has happened. And that, I think that's all very normal. You can't just deny that. So, this old saying of control the controllables, well, to an element is true, but you can't ignore the negative stuff as well. It's there, it's real. If someone's shouting behind you at Brisbane for 2 hours non-stop that you're crap, Giles, go home, Giles, we hate you, Giles, well, it's there. But take it in, and then it's almost deciding where you place that attention. I need to place my attention here on my job now, for this team, for my captain, and get this bloke out. Yeah.
Where do you reckon, you said there that you let it out by, writing it down. Obviously the conversation started that, and obviously some more conversations as well. But if you kept it within, where do you reckon you were headed?
Out of the team. You know, I definitely think without that meeting with Bully, without beginning that process, I wouldn't have made it to 2005. And there were certainly discussions Stina and I had that were, look, if this is what it's doing to you, just get out. And what a shame that would have been, you know, because you start this path. This is all you've ever wanted to do. And people imagine, you know, pulling on that jersey, putting on that cap, every time you do it, it's just all like roses and plain sailing, but it's not. It comes with a huge amount of weight and pressure, whether that's as a player or coach or administrator. It comes with a huge amount of pressure. And sometimes, as I talk about, you just get scrambled. And when you're in that place, you can have some pretty bad thoughts, you know, whether it be about yourself or other stuff. And, you know, that, again, I've said this recently, that doesn't, you know, I haven't got a monopoly on this stuff. This stuff happens to everyone, but I think part of the book is about me talking openly about it. It is okay to talk about it, particularly for us men who sometimes find it more difficult, and it's a real issue.
Absolutely, and totally different to when you were going through it as well, because it feels like it's much more approachable from the person who has it, and also from the person who's hearing it from someone else. That there's a lot more comprehension around this. I mean, we've all just watched the Test series, and the life of Graeme Thorpe was celebrated during this recent Test series, and you knew Graeme pretty well. It's absolutely tragic what happened to him, and his family were there and celebrating his life as well. But you just never know, do you, mate? You never really know.
No, and I spent a lot of time. Some of my best moments with Thorpe as a player. When I was head coach of the white ball team, he was one of my assistants, and I do mention that in the book, that some of my best nights and wake up with my ribs hurting from laughing so much. You know, they're really fun times on tour. To when I was MD and he was out on that Ashes trip, and some really difficult times on tour for everyone. And you know, he through his life and career, I think, struggled with, again, those extremes, and it's very, very sad. Yeah, it's a really sad story, because he was a great man, and you know, that's beyond the brilliant player he was, because ultimately we're just all humans, and we've got families, and we've got people who care about us, and again, he's a huge loss to all of us.
Absolutely. But 05, your own personal struggles, you were able to fight your way through them and become a big part of that side as well. Just an amazing time in sport, full stop. Early in the century, a few things have twisted right now about how the world spins, but that captivated anyone who even had a passing interest in cricket. And for you guys to go in, and then, I mean, you say it in the book, you end up, there's a story involving Kevin Pietersen, 32 Hours, and Mickey Rourke. We'll get to that in a second. But what was it about that side? Was it you look at great cricket sides and they all have that alpha element to them, and you guys had Andrew Flintoff, who looked like he was scared of nothing. You had Kevin Pietersen, who just come into the team, looked like he was scared of nothing. Was that a defining factor for you guys, or was it something else that you can pick out?
Yeah, so a few things. Probably go back a step just on that series and the context. Yeah, we'd not won the Ashes for 18 years. Many players had gone through the team, including Graeme Thorpe, Nasser Hussain, Alex Stewart, never won the Ashes. We'd been on a journey, but we're up against this Australian team that were just like giants, almost like the Galacticos of cricket, just a team full of names, stars. So it was like two heavyweights again, just sort of stepping into a ring. I think the strength for us as we'd been on that journey together. You know, all great teams, I think, have diversity. We're not all the same, thank God. And you couldn't be.
Imagine 11 Kevin Pietersens in one side.
Yeah. Well, you need your game changers. You need your match winners, and we certainly had them, and we had quite a few of them. And I'm not downplaying anyone else because we had some, world class players, but Kev and Fred, I suppose, are the biggest two of those sort of characters. But we also had Fred. When you cross that white line, you wouldn't want, particularly that year, you wouldn't want anyone else with you, beside you. But he was quite funny in the dressing room. The messiest man you've ever seen. His underwear would be strewn all over the place, and his bag stinking. Wasn't really keen on doing stuff like warm-ups and preparation, but he was quite natural on that. The amount of times I'd see Fred, the morning of a game, he'd run up and bowl one ball, and then follow the ball off if the pavilion's that way, and just walk straight off, and then just bowl one ball. He could just do that. But I think we also had a sort of critical mass of people like Warne and Trescothick and Strauss, myself, hopefully, who tried to keep just on an even keel at times as well in that dressing room, and just keep things moving in the right direction. But there's no doubt, that was Fred's coming of age series. He, like Warne for the Australians, at every turn, when the game looked like moving in the wrong direction, Fred would step in and make a huge difference.
Mm. And you celebrated in kind. The celebrations are almost part of folklore as much as the actual damn cricket, the 5 test matches. And it was fair enough because it was just this release for everyone involved, not least you players. But was that fair income? So you and Kevin Peterson ended up in a nightclub a long time after the final of those bails were flicked off at the Oval in bad light, and you ended up hanging out with Mickey Rourke?
Yeah, I know hanging out might be a stretch, but yeah, we were sitting there, and we'd been on it for quite some time at that point, and we ended up in a nightclub called Bougie's in Mayfair, and we're sitting there, and I turned to my right, and there's Mickey Rourke, and this is a long way from the beginning of my story, Ripley Village in Surrey, and hello, but I suppose that in itself is almost like a snapshot of how the summer went. We went from, although we know Ashes series are huge and everyone had been looking forward to it, but it become something completely different by the end of the summer. The profile of the game almost over those 5 games in the country had changed. Millions and millions of people were following it, and that's that day of celebration. We'd heard about this open-top bus ride through London. We never expected, and we were joking about seeing a couple of people and a dog, that would be it. But when we turned the corner to Trafalgar Square and you couldn't see pavement, and there were just tens of thousands of people there, you suddenly realised what this series had done to people. And I think that's one of the best things that came out of it, was the people walking down the street with Flintoff shirts or Peterson shirts rather than football shirts. And I don't think actually the profiler game in this country ever looked back. And it was the beginning of a much better run for us, obviously, and particularly in Ashes series. We lost the next one, yes, but then a much better run. And also on terrestrial TV. So I also think that's why we're still recognised, because when I hit the winning runs at Trent Bridge, I think it was 8.6 million people watched that moment just in our country. And that's no slight on Sky and being behind a paywall now, because Sky have done some incredible stuff for cricket from grassroots all the way up. But it was just a different time, and also very special, yeah.
Have you got a photo of that, those winning runs, that moment, the winning runs at Trent Bridge, anywhere in your house, or you're not that kind of guy?
I have actually, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Stina doesn't let me have too much cricket stuff up, but I have got an original painting that's called Two to Win, which is, me running stupidly down the pitch just about with my hands up. Which is again, is probably not the most important moment. It is in terms of series, because you end up, you never know, but you never know at the time, you end up hitting the winning runs in arguably the best Ashes series of all time. The interesting thing about that moment, I always say to people, is that until that point, it's almost like you're just playing your own little game, just like me and Hoggy with the two bowlers, because everything's so closed in, and it's only when you hit those winning runs and it's almost like someone turning the volume up and all this floods in, and you're like, wow, this is pretty special. But yeah, that was a pretty good night as well.
I bet it was. Have you got any enduring memories of when you were out there for that 59 at the Oval and some of the advice you were copying off in an Australian accent from the 11 Australians that were sharing the field with you throughout those crucial couple of hours that defined or kind of said about where the Ashes were going to go?
Not too bad actually. People talk a lot about sledging. Maybe the Aussies thought I was never going to be out there long enough to worry about it. So I didn't get too much. But Kev and I kept each other going. People talk a lot about Kev's innings that day, that he just smashed it. But actually, when I went in, he reeled it back in for a while, and we just said, right, let's try and bat some time and get through. And we did 6 balls at a time, then 12 balls at a time. I think the most we got to was 24. Then we'd come back down. Then he'd start playing, some of these unbelievable shots where Warne would get slightly full, and he'd look like he's just nudged it over his head and it goes into the crowd. Or there was one in particular. Brett Lee was steamed in, as he always did, and he flat batted into the longest boundary in front square, and it came up at like 96.4 miles an hour, and you're like, wow, this is different.
Yeah.
He kept trying to kill me, Brett Lee.
Standard.
And you could laugh afterwards, but when he comes around the wicket at you, and you're like, oh my God, you have to, and I've got to pick somewhere of me off the ground. My feet are off the ground. I'm ducking at the same time, and the ball's just gone past here. But love Brett Lee. So when I got 50, even at the end of that day, when it was done, he kept charging in.
Yeah.
And he charged in this ball, and they'd put point out because I was back with Hoggy at this point. Kev was out, and I nudged it in the offside and ran. And as I'm halfway at the pitch, he's still scowling at me. And then I get close to him. This big grin comes across his face. He sticks his hand out and says, well played, mate.
Aye.
And that's just him and many of the Aussies. And that's, much of how that series was played, which was great.
So looking ahead to this series, I'm not entirely sure there's going to be some mid-pitch, mid-session handshakes going on. Well, Ben Stokes might offer it and ask if you want to draw the game, gents, but hey, let's not go there. We can go there if you want. How do you reckon this one's shaping up? Because it feels like there's 2 pretty good cricket teams looking to become on the verge of great cricket teams, and this could help the conversation go one way or another. How's it being almost perceived? Might be a little early to perceive something, conceive the ideas about this impending Ashes series.
Yeah, look, for me, I think it's likely to be the best contest for some time. I think this England team clearly is playing a way that is in a manner you probably need to take Australia on, in that confidence, in that brashness. But there are many things that still have to fit into place or fall into place, and particularly, if you get back to more cricket specific, you've got to keep Archer fit. You need Wood fit. You've got to have pace to beat the Australians in Australia. You've got to be able to push back with something. So they're crucial. Cass has shown that he's got something. He's not, his figures wouldn't demonstrate that he's had a brilliant summary, but he's got some pace as well. And behind those two, he could do something. I worry slightly about how we bat sometimes, because it's okay to take it on. But as we know, on generally on Australian grounds, they're bigger. If you consistently try and take it on, you're probably going to get yourself into a bit of trouble at some point. But so that's always easy to look internal. I think for the Australians, the most important thing will be, well, there's 2 things. They've got to get the runs, but keeping your bowling unit, which has been so successful for you, keeping them all on the park and keeping them fit. If you do that, it's going to be I think it'll be a tough challenge for us.
My mate Hads. Do you ever play much against Brad Haddon?
I was thinking about this earlier. I think he's much younger than me. So I may have played.
Crossover. Yeah.
I might have played a couple of games at the beginning of his career and the end of mine, but I retired quite young, obviously at 34. So yeah.
No, he's of the opinion that Ben Stokes is massive, huge in so many ways. Not just setting the temperament of the side, which can go up a pitch or two, as we saw in this most recent series against India. But he's pure talent as well. He's bowling and he's batting. It almost feels sometimes that Ben Stokes is too competitive because he wants it that much. Can you see that as well, or is it something that you should be absolutely fine with because that's exactly what you need to win in Australia?
Well, yeah, you need some of that, but then you've got to keep him on the park. So you've got to manage limits of that, and we've seen in this Indian series that I think he probably bowled too much and got injured, and that's difficult when he's going, whether it be bat or ball or in the field. He does everything at 100 miles an hour and does everything to win for England, but his body is sometimes fragile as well, and he's got to rein it back in, because there's no doubt if he's not on the park, England's chances of winning that Ashes decrease significantly, I would say, because he is one of those warrior characters, a bit like Flintoff and Peterson in our time, that when the proverbial hits the fan, or when it looks toughest, he normally comes back pretty hard. So yeah, he is crucial. But I think this one's really difficult, really difficult to call, but it should be an amazing series.
How would you view the Brendan McCullum era of English cricket? You've lived through so many eras, both out there as a player, seen it as a coach, seen it as the director of cricket. It feels like he's come in there and tried to shake things the way he feels they should be shaped in cricket for various reasons. But I don't know how to frame it. Has it worked? Feels like an unfair question. It's just almost how you feel about it, how they carry themselves, how they try to win cricket games. What do you think?
Well, look, firstly, we all want players to play with positivity and enjoy their cricket and win. That's why we all play the game. I think they've got a bit to do to prove they're this team that everyone is building them up to be, and that big test comes this winter. If we lose in Australia, well, we'd have lost the last series in India. We didn't beat Australia in England. We didn't beat India in England. And if we lose over there as well, then that's, I know personally, that's what you get judged on. You get judged on those big series, and they're generally regime changes. However you put it, the pressure, we went there at a time in COVID where we had quite frankly no chance of winning that series when we arrived. But this is a different thing, and I think this is a huge winter for quite a few. They do things differently. There's a lot of talk about the amount of golf they play and downtime they have compared to us. But in some ways, as you said, at least they're being authentic. This is the way McCullum, Stokes, Key have gone with it, and they're sticking to it. And there's no point in changing now. You've got to see it through. But almost everyone thinks the same way. So in this instance, if there's regime change, it almost takes the whole thing down.
Mate, on this podcast, maybe Haddon, but his sons play. But with myself and Healy, you will never hear on this podcast the line "cricketers play too much golf." There's no such thing. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. But I mean, you know it with your appreciation of how people write about cricket, what people think of cricket, of cricketers as well. You've got ex-cricketers like Dave Warner coming out and saying that Josh Hazlewood has Root's number. He might need to take his surfboard off his front pad. Stuart Broad chips back at Dave Warner. It's going to go on for the next couple of months. It's going to be the game before the game.
Yeah, it's started already, which is great. and it's only going to get worse. My sense is this winter's going to be as bad as any for the abuse this England team get, because I think, and that's before the series starts, because they'll probably go there as the biggest threat to Australia in some time. So I think everyone's going to come hard at them. And how they start is like any series, it's crucial. But how you start an Ashes series is absolutely crucial, because once it starts tipping the wrong way, it's very difficult to slow that down. And just look at history. We won once there in what now almost 40 years, and that's arguably with our best batting lineup in that time, which was Cook, Strauss, Trott, Bell, Peterson, Collingwood, Pryor, and arguably, with all due respect to the Australian team, probably Australia's worst bowling lineup in that time. So, and that's once. We won once in 40 years. So that's pretty hard odds. But looking at the way this England team plays, I'd rather than go out there now and play that way, play with that confidence and I say that brashness, and that, at times almost headlessness.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think at the very start of this conversation, occasionally you just want them to go, let's just reassess here. And if we've got Australia down, let's just kill them off, because you can't. I know the pain you suffer from Ashes series. I know that very personally. And when you got Australia down, just kill them off and get the job done. And same thing happened in this last test match against India. We had them and we didn't finish it off, and that can cost you.
Sets it up beautifully. All of that you've put into context right there. Ashley Giles, The King of Spain and I, is out now, available, as mentioned, as a hardback and an ebook from fairfieldbooks.co.uk and online everywhere through your favourite bookseller. Mate, you've been great company. Thanks so much for being a part of English Willow Talk, Ashley Giles. And we look forward to the Ashes, mate. Can't wait.
Thanks, Adam. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.